When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Warning, creators of this game do understand the subject matter may be offensive to some, but they do honor the families and people that have been affected by these real-life tragedies that these individuals have caused. Want to play a game?
Oh, yeah!
Lover of true crime?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we got an interesting game for you to check out.
Wow.
With the mashup of influences such as horror movies, collecting cards, and RPGs.
What?
Led to giving birth to an incredible creation of this game, Killers, the card game.
You are all my children now.
This game is a collectible trading card game featuring some of the most infamous killers, with tidbits of trivia on the back of each card to help you learn some insight to each criminal.
Who the hell are you?
Let's not forget, during the game, cops will be chasing you and these criminals.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
However, check out their website listed through all social media today, which can be found under Killers, the card game.
Am I on the internet?
I want to play a game.
This is Nikita Breznikov. I want all you stupid Americans, you listen, watch Crazy Train Radio. If not, I will make you all go to the gulag. До свидания, товарищ.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I'm gonna be clear that I may have went out and get a little adult beverage for this conversation, but it's gonna be fun because I've known this gentleman for, Christ, 20 years. And when I say that, I mean that in a bad way. I'm not a religious guy. I'm not bad-mouthing Jesus Christ. Don't go there, folks. Don't get me started on that. We're not bad-mouthing that guy. But, like I said, I've known this guy 20, 21 years.
At least?
Yeah, because this goes back to my Wrestle This days when I was 17 and 18 years old when I first got connected with this guy.
Wow.
And he was happy to come on the AM terrestrial show at the time. And have kept in touch, been at shows together, just he put up with my goofy ass at the time, but love the guy, and we'll get into all the stories as we go. He's
Yes.
like the rest of them, George Shire, Evan Ginsberg, Mike Lano. Did I mention George Shire? Yeah, I mentioned George Shire. And
I just got to know him too, and he's a cool guy. I like George.
George loves the hell out of you.
Well, from your show, yeah.
Yeah. Brian Young, which Brian was going to join us, but he's past couple weeks has had some health stuff going on. Don't have a real voice yet. I checked in with him tonight. But Brian says hello. Loves you to death as well.
And I send it back to him. He's a great guy.
Yeah. The author of The Wrestler's Wrestler. But with me tonight is Mr. Nikita Breznikov.
Excellent.
Nikita, how are you doing, sir? I'm glad we're finally doing this. And what's the drink of choice you got there tonight?
Oh, I just got pomegranate juice and water. I'm cheap, so I cut it. Well, it's a little strong, too. But it's good for you. It's good for you. I'm no young guy anymore, so I try to stay healthy. I drink my wine and beer when I have the appropriate meal, like steak or pasta. I have the wine. Every night I have a light beer. Every night, without fail. That's my drink of choice.
To alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
Coors Light, and they say that's okay. It won't hurt you, so it's good.
But I do want to mention, and obviously you're going to talk old school wrestling here.
Yes.
But I want to mention again because it's a very popular read, and I am bad. I didn't get it. I got a full bookshelf here. Need another one.
I'm looking.
Yeah, but
I'm looking.
Nikita's got a book, When It Was Real.
Yes.
Crowbar Press. There's audio version, or not audio
Kindle.
version, but the Kindle version, hard copy. I like the hard copies myself. I'm actually going to be ordering over the weekend.
The difference between the two is that the hard copy's got all those little clippings that we used to get in the newspaper. Not for everyone that we mentioned, but it's got like 322, so there's a lot. Because I didn't realize that the wonderful Scott Teal was going to do that. He surprised me. So first I get the cards, the ad cards, and it's like, what the hell is this? 322 pictures. I'm like, oh shit. Don't tell me he put pictures in there, because I don't want somebody suing me for using their pictures. But it was the ads. So when I got the book, I'm like, because I kept telling my wife, Victoria, if I don't mention her name, she'll get angry. I said, man, I always talked about wanting to do a clipping book for the ads. I said, this basically is it. So it's kind of neat. I enjoy it.
Well, with that being said, and Scott has been involved with multiple wrestling book projects.
Over 300, yes.
Never interacted, surprisingly, with Scott over the years, but I'm hoping I will soon. But with the clippings and all that you're mentioning there that were used as images in the hard copy of the book, was that because Nikita is originally from the Northeast as well? He's a Baltimore guy, and Maryland guy. Was everything from like the Baltimore Civic Center, or did you expand to like, say, the Capitol, the Spectrum?
Yeah. And the Garden, yes. And then he's got a couple.
Which Garden? Are we talking Boston or Madison Square?
Madison Square. But there was a few from Boston, because then he's got like 4 or 5 pages. It's just like a clipping montage from all over the place, like Total Ice World, New Jersey, and just about any Catholic Youth Center in Pennsylvania. That was a weird place. They would probably draw 300. They would bring in big names, put on a good card. They just couldn't draw a lot of people. I'm not familiar with the building. Maybe it wasn't that big, but yeah, that's how Catholic, it was always CYC Wrestling, Catholic Youth Center. It was a good organization. See, that's what people don't realize. Back in the 70s, and I guess the 60s as well, during the week when you weren't in a major arena, they were going to high schools, and they were doing shows on the boardwalks in Atlantic City and New Jersey and places like that. You know, and it's like that you could get close to people there, and that was nice. But of course, Black Friday was Madison Square Garden every month, and Baltimore Civic Center, Capitol Center, Spectrum, Boston Garden. You know, if you didn't make it, they were going to go under. So that's what they did.
Well, would those have been, and obviously each territory was different back in the day, but those shows, like you're saying, at the CYCs and the high schools and all that stuff. Were those like what George was telling me with the AWA in terms of what were called bought shows? In terms of they would be for like charity events, like your little leagues, your this, your that.
Yes, absolutely. And it was a way for the boys to pick up a payday during, well, like the chief told me, Cowtown, which is in New Jersey, as soon as you come over the bridge, it's like everybody thinks New Jersey's just industry and the metropolitan. But that section, there's Elmer, Cowtown, because Bruce Willis owned a big parcel of that for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's just this little bit of it. You think you're in Iowa. So, because Chief said they would go to Cowtown, he said, I'm stepping over cow shit to get to the ring. He said, but it was a payday. You know, it all added up. And if you're not in the Garden or the Spectrum, you know, during the week, you're making these other shots and you're making the money. And it's like, yeah, why not?
Yeah. And for geographical reference, and Nikita knows this, I'm right over the bridge and I'm currently, but Nikita and Nikolai have been in Gloucester City.
Yeah.
You did some shows for
Gloucester.
Yeah. You guys did a couple shots for Crybaby Waldo, who was no longer with us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he ran shows over at Mary Ethel. And I always, it's funny, I walked right into this at the time. And like I said, I've known Nikita for 21 years at this point. But it was one of the first times you introduced me to Nikolai. And obviously we're going to get into Nikolai and all. Oh, we'll go there now. But hey, yeah, it was right after the Hall of Fame for WWE with Nikolai.
Keep talking. I'm not going, I'm just going to do this. Go ahead.
No, so anyway, folks, I saw the guys after the match or whatever, and they got to hit the road to head back to Maryland. Hey, congratulations, Nikolai, on the Hall of Fame. And how you feel? He goes, and it was Nikolai being Nikolai. He goes, with my hands.
With my hands. That's it.
Yeah. It was, you know how he was. That's exactly how he was. So.
Oh my God. He loved to laugh.
Yes. Well, I guess I never asked you this, but in all the years we've known each other, but how did you get connected with Nikolai? Was it something with VHS tapes or something we were talking about before we hit the red button?
Yes, it was. I was in patrol. It was, I saw a card coming up in the 7-Eleven, the old, the advertisements that we all used to use for the upcoming indie shows with the different colors, and it said Nikolai Volkov. So I said, well, damn, I'm working next Sunday, and it's right there at the youth center. So I said, I'm going to try to see if I could get up to him and talk and see if he's got any kind of tapes. Because now we're talking VHS tapes, people. This goes back to the 90s. The DVD wasn't really popping yet. It was coming in.
Maybe Laserdisc a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, if you could do that. That was an expensive gimmick. Because in 1983, I got into tape trading. That was its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, if you had connections, and there was a guy in Philadelphia, Frank Grasso, I got my first collections from. And, it was nice. I didn't have a lot at that time. This goes to 1993 when I met Nikolai. So I go there, I'm in uniform. He comes walking. He says, hello, Sergeant. I say, hey, Nikolai, how you doing? So he does his thing where he comes out before the matches to sell his pictures. So I go over to talk to him. And we hit it off right away. And I said, do you have any tapes, Nikolai? He's like, no, I don't have nothing. But I would love it. I will pay you. I said, no, you're not going to pay me shit. Because number one, they can come after me if I charge you. And number two, you've done so much through the years. I owe you this. That's no problem. So then we became friends. When I dropped the tapes, he gave me his phone number, then went to his house. And, people talk about being marks, but we all were. Because in his basement, he had a gym set up, but he had pictures of himself with everybody. From, Bruno, all kind of people, Bob Backlund, George Steele. if it's not in your blood and in your heart, I don't think you can survive, because you want to be there. You have to want to do it. So yeah, he definitely was. So then I bugged him to try to get into business. He didn't want me to, because he said, you have a good job with police. We all get hurt. And I said, well, I still want to do it. He said, well, then you're going to be my manager. I said, I don't do that shit, but I liked it. And then after about maybe 5 years, I said, Nikolai, I'm bigger than some of these son of a bitches. He's like, yeah. He said, fuck it, we become tag team. So I said, all right, good. We didn't set the world on fire, but it was good. I loved it. In fact, last night I posted this. It was February 28th,
with Bundy.
1998.
The picture with Bundy.
Yep, with Bundy in Pennsville. That's right over the bridge. That was
yes,
one
it
of the
is.
biggest trips we ever made in New Jersey. And for Dino Sana and the WWWWWA. And it was like, and I'm like, you can't ask for anything more. I mean, my God, it's worth gold. It's like, son of a bitch. And people ask me, they say, well, you always wanted to do that. I said, hell, are you crazy? I didn't have any imagination that I could do this. No, I never dreamt about it or wanted to do it. But thank God, I'm like Steel Lou Gehrig's gimmick. I'm one of the luckiest son of a bitches on the face of the earth. It's like, damn.
And what's funny with Nikolai, and you could confirm this, because I never had a chance to ask Nikolai, because I saw him throughout the years with you and, at different shows when you weren't around, or whatever the case, when you moved out west. And the one thing I always heard about Nikolai, and I could totally see it with the little interaction I've had with him, and being smart with his money and stuff, that when he was especially on with like the WWF and WWF, because most people think of the run with Iron Sheik and all that stuff when everything went boom. But Nikolai, to be smart with his money, would go food shopping and have it wherever he'd be centralized for that round of shots.
Yes. They laughed about him. He did the same thing in Japan. He got a hibachi. He would buy steak, fish, take it to the hotel room and cook it. Yeah. And it's like, you could call him cheap, but you know what? I'm cheap, because there ain't nobody giving it away. And if you don't have it at the end of the fucking month, you got trouble. And nobody, like I say, they don't give it away, so you got to take care of it.
Yeah.
I was at Cauliflower Alley when my book got released in Las Vegas about 3 years ago. And I'm watching people. They're in the big restaurants, drinking, having a good time. I was with a retired judge. He's a big wrestling fan. And he's bodybuilder too. He's a referee, my buddy. And we went and got hot dogs at the bowling alley and drank water. It's like, they're $1. So I'm like, what the hell, man? You could say what you want, but you're making some other bastard rich. What the hell is the sense in it? You're being worked, like, and I hate to say it, like, we work people, but it's for a good cause. People love it. It's a catharsis. Everybody needs it. So Jim Caputo, by the way, I want to mention his name. He's the referee. What a bodybuilder, because we did a little gimmick in Oklahoma where he gave my guy a fast count, so I challenged him. He takes his shirt off. I'm like, uh-oh. I challenged him to arm wrestle. So we did all that bullshit like people do with arm wrestling, and they loved it. In fact, Steve Cox, it was his show, and he said, man, people pop for that. That's the biggest pop of the night. He got guys beating their brains out. They pop for that bullshit. I said, Steve, nice and easy. All you got to do, make it work, make people happy, and you got it. You don't have to kill each other. It's stupid.
That right there, and we're going to be all over the place, folks, but that right there reminds me of the old saying Bobby Heenan would say. Bobby Heenan would always say, and it makes perfect sense when you think about the business. You manage like you're a wrestler, and you wrestle like you're a manager.
Very interesting. Never heard.
If you think about that, like, you do complete 180 there on how you do things. And
Yes.
you're that and it's more if you do that chicken shit heel too, depending on what you're doing and trying to accomplish.
Heenan. I love him for different reasons than what other people would think. Because I really wasn't watching when he hit the WWF. I mean, I saw some of the things with Monsoon. That was funny on the wrestling Monday night thing they had going on. But he was instrumental in putting the Valiant brothers together, because he had gotten the word from the Bear Man, Dave McGinty, Gene Dubois at the time, who said, tell Dick the Bruiser that this guy, John Sullivan, I think he'd be great with Jimmy Valiant. So Bobby Heenan got the message to Dick the Bruiser. Then they had their tryout because Bruno was running Pittsburgh. So Bruno and Dick the Bruiser were going to be in a tag match that night. So they said, all right, bring this kid down. He was Pittsburgh based anyway, Johnny was. So Jimmy was good for it. And they put those two together. And it was September of 73. And September the 18th, I believe. And when Dick the Bruiser saw them, he said, come on, you're going with me to Chicago. You guys are going to be a hit. He made them the Valiant Brothers. They won up the WGNG, I believe, whatever the big station is up there in Chicago. Set the world on fire.
I think, yeah.
WGN. So, and then Nikolai, or Bruno, because he was champion with Dick the Bruiser. They switched the titles back and forth. I never heard this officially, but I think Bruno was instrumental in bringing the Valiant Brothers to the Northeast, because they hit in May of 74, and that was it, Daddy. You know, the Valiant Brothers, kaboom, off they went to the races, you know. So, son of a bitch, that was great. So I'm always grateful. I did get to know Bobby Heenan a little at the end, and, you know, God rest his soul. I'm a cancer survivor, and, you know, he had a good spirit. He really did at the end. And as hard as it was for him, he had very good spirit. So he was a fighter.
Last two questions on Nikolai. I think it's funny because the one's a funny story, I think.
Yes.
From versions I heard. Well, first is, what was the love? And obviously, we're not going to go there tonight, folks, but Vince McMahon always had a love for Nikolai.
Yes,
as a person and everything else. So, you know, we'll go with that first. What do you think it was that Vince really loved about Nikolai?
Well, Vince,
because promoters are usually, you know how promoters are.
Vince loved the guys that had good physique. He respected that. Of course, he was crazy himself, always training, because Freddie Blassie used to say, you ride with that son of a bitch, you got dumbbells beating on your ankles as you're driving. He's got shit all... You got room for your bag. He's got so many fucking weights in the car. And it's like, Vince, he lived it, you know? So he respected Nikolai for that. And it, of course, with the Nikolai giving the company blood through the years, he would do anything that they asked. So I was there personally in the Baltimore Civic Center. This was during a Monday Night Raw taping. And Vince looked at him and said, this is your home. You'll always have a place here, Nikolai. You can always come here. And I don't think he would write him a check. But I'll tell you what I saw that a lot of people don't know. And everybody's burning down the house these days over Vince McMahon. I think they would just like a flower that wasn't watered. They would all dry up and die if they didn't have anything to talk about him. Yeah. But there was a guy named James Dudley. He was one of the first inductees in the Hall of Fame. He was Bobo's manager, kind of like, you know, kind of behind the scenes, but he did a lot for the office back in those days. And Dudley, he would come to town too when Raw was taped. And Vince would spend an hour with the man. And I think they bought him a new wheelchair one time too. And it's like, you didn't have to do that. Because you hear a lot that, you know, Vince should be given pension, medical plan. It's a fucking... private, you do your own thing. Like today, they have LLC. you are a self-employed person. You understand that when they bring you in. You're not part of the company. You could be, but that's not the way it was designed, and anybody could have walked away. You're self-employed. Now, with the television today, you should be SAG, Screen Actors Guild. You know, Absolutely. And it's like, what the fuck is their problem? I'm in the Screen Actors Guild through wrestling, or not wrestling, but through acting. And it's like, they're always bitching about you do this, do that. Well, hey, these guys are on television, which to me is the oldest running reality show of all time. How come they're not brought into the Screen Actors Guild Union? That's how they would get coverage, medical, pensions, everything. Oh, that's not happening, though, because that's a money going to go out the door. So yeah, don't hit me with that bullshit, because I know how that works both ways.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know of
when the Valiant Brothers had their audition for Bruno there in Pittsburgh, September the 7th.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation with the SAG, because I'm very familiar with the famous story of Jesse Ventura talking SAG and all that
everybody's got a bunch of bullshit. And I don't mean Jesse, but I'm talking about these organizations. Yeah. You know, they want to pat you on the back, and they're feeling you. Where are they going to put the knife?
Yeah, exactly. There's a difference between kicking the ass and a pat the back. But
yeah. To ask SAG, if anybody's out there listening, but you bastards ain't done shit for me except take my dues money and give me a stupid card.
Oh boy. But the other Nikolai story, the funny one I want to bring up, was supposedly you were looking to do a different direction with this, but he married your son.
Yes. And then we'll have to explain what that means.
Yes.
He performed the ceremony. And what happened was, my son called me. He said, Dad, I want Father Mike, who married my wife and I, to do the ceremony. I said, okay, that sounds great. I've known Mike. He was, oh my God, besides being a priest, he was also a Protestant or Episcopal, I think maybe. He was a psychotherapist and a cult deprogrammer. So I went with him many times through the book, The Ultimate Evil, talking about the Son of Sam murders. I was very intrigued with that. And I knew the name Michael Rocha, so I hooked up with him because there was a call to his house one day. When it came over the radio, it was like, it can't be the same guy. So I go there, it was blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we became good friends. But what I didn't know was that Mike had died. Because the last time I was back home in Baltimore, I called him. I said, Mike, let's get the guy. He's like, no, I'm feeling under the weather. He'd never told me he had cancer. And he didn't want people to feel sorry for him. So he passed on without me knowing about it. So my son tells me, he says, Dad, Father Mike died. I'm like, holy shit. So I said, tell you what, I know a guy, friend of Nikolai. He's got that bullshit gimmick over the internet or whatever. He can do the ceremony. Call him. Next thing I know, he's calling me. He said, Dad, Nikolai's going to do it. I said, Nikolai's going to do what? He said, he's going to marry me. I said, listen, number one, don't fucking blame me if anything goes wrong. I love the guy, you know that. But Nikolai sometimes lost for an answer when you say hello. You want to do this shit? God bless you. I think he's the only one that he ever married, because he got sick not too long after that. In fact, that was in April, about 4 or 5 years ago. And I think then Nikolai died that July. Yeah. So it was ironic that, you know, there I am having a good time with him in April, last time we see each other. And then, boom, he's gone in July. And it's like, damn.
Yeah.
What about this? Almost daily to call him and tell him something funny. You know, it's like, does he love to laugh? A fart was the big thing with Nikolai.
Yeah.
I mean, son of a bitch. And I guess we're juvenile. Whatever.
We're all big kids.
Put the house down. Have a good fart.
Yeah, we're all big kids, Nikita.
Yes.
Well, I just actually thought of this as we're sitting here shooting the shit and telling stories. And like I said, the book, goes back to this from 70 to 79 when it was real. But favorite Nikolai match you either saw in person or that you saw on tape and such? Because obviously, like I said, most people think of the tag team run with Iron Sheik and stuff when everything went boom. But people need to realize that Nikolai had a hell of a run with Bruno and a lot of those guys before that.
Yes. Now, and let me say real quick, everybody pats Hulk Hogan on the back for 1984. Okay, he carried the water there, but the Slaughter Sheik feud and Nikolai and the Iron Sheik tag team has a lot to, and Roddy Piper has a lot to do with 1984. They can't be left out. So anyway, with Nikolai, well, God, when I first started watching in 1970, he was part of the team called the Mongols. Him and Newton Tattery, Beppo and Guido Mongol. Oh, I didn't know Nikolai was 19 years old, but he was 6'4" and 345. It's like a solid muscle. And we looked at these guys, and it's like, who's going to beat them? How the hell is Bruno going to beat them? Or Chief? Or Monsoon? Or Victor Rivera? And I was like, I would say Nikolai's match with Bruno at the Garden, September 14th, 1970. That was one of the first ones. He almost went an hour with him, and that was unusual, but he had the stamina besides all that beef on him to do it. And Bruno did love Nikolai, believe me, and it was the mutual love affair between the two. But I would say, because I didn't really get to see that match until years later, but my favorite would be Bruno against Nikolai, October 25th, 1976 in the Garden. See, they always had a run, but the Mongols left undefeated, but they were the international tag team champions. So when they left, and that was a dispute, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. It was some kind of bullshit that went on. So here's WWF left with no tag team. It's like, what the hell? Then they come up with this tournament. Crazy Luke and Tarzan Tyler beat Dick the Bruiser and the Sheik in Louisiana on May 31st of 1971, which was bullshit. Never happened, like the Intercontinental thing. But Nikolai went with Newton to Pittsburgh. They bought some of the territory from Bruno. And then, that's a tough deal. Running the show, a lot of money goes out the door. It's tough. So then Nikolai comes back in 74, whole different look, no pigtail. He's Nikolai Volkov with Blassie. Blassie's first protege, people. His first protege. There was another love affair between those two. And it was like, wow. He just went apeshit wild. Good run. I never saw the match with Freddie's last match in the Garden, June 24th of 74 against Bruno and Chief. I wish I could, but that would be one of my all-time want-to-see matches. And then the ones they had in the Garden with the Valiant brothers, none of those have ever been broadcast. But he left, came back in 76 under Lou Albano, and we had got tapes of those matches. So Nikolai was always powerhouse, and he could go an hour. And let's go back. I'll tell you, he went with Bruno September 14th of 70. They were looking for somebody to do a Broadway with Bruno. They asked Crusher Verdue. This is Nikolai told me the story. Crusher Verdue said, I can't do no fucking hour. He was a barrel-chested guy, too big. He couldn't carry it. So Nikolai said, I could do it. They said, okay, give the kid a shot. What the fuck? He said, we'll make it. We'll draw it out for an hour. And they did. And it was a great match. I have it now from 24/7. They put it out. Or no, when they went on the net. When they put it on the...
It's out there.
Yeah. So I got a copy of it off of that. And damn, that was very good. Very good match. Wild. I mean, you don't... Nikolai was clumsy. Let's not make any mistakes about that. He was clumsy in the ring. As Chief used to say...
Said with love, folks. Said with love.
I make this signal, Nikolai, move in. I make that one, you move back. He said, hell with it. Stay in the middle of the ring. I'll work around you. So it's like, he was good, but nobody could do power like him. He would lift the guy over his head while he was choking, bring him down on the knee, lift him back up again. It's like, that's not a barbell, people. That's a moving person. And he could haul you.
Whole different.
Unbelievable.
Whole different ball game there. But,
yes,
and don't want this to be a whole hour on Nikolai, but it just hit me because of a story I heard. Because you just mentioned his name in Freddie Blassie.
Yes.
And the story I had heard, and it was, if I remember correctly, it was in Freddie's book, which was co-authored by, I don't know the relationship you have with him, but Keith Elliott Greenberg.
I don't know him.
You don't? Oh, okay. I'll have to introduce you. You would love Keith. I will make that happen. But he's a historian like Brian and George and Evan and all those guys. Yeah. But the story that obviously was done in Freddie's voice was apparently there was something to do with one of Freddie's kids. And Nikolai made a reconnection there.
Yes.
What was that story? Do you remember?
Yeah, Freddie had been estranged from both his kids, his son and his daughter, for a lot of years, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So one day, the daughter come up to Nikolai and she said, "Hello, Mr. Volkov." And he thought she wanted an autograph. She said, "No, I'm Freddie Blassie's daughter, and I would like to meet my father if you could arrange it." And Nikolai said, yeah, give me your information. So it wasn't in person because, managers didn't go on the road with the guys.
Yeah.
So one time they were together. So Nikolai said, "Hey, I have the phone number for your daughter." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "You want to call her?" And he said, "Yeah, okay. Let me try it, see what happens." And then Nikolai said after 2 minutes, the tears were rolling down his cheeks. He said, "Okay, guys, give him some privacy." So Freddie was so happy. It was a nice reunion. So then Nikolai said, "Now you call your son." He said, "Okay." So, yeah, that was a great story. He definitely, that was a true story. Yes, it happened. Nikolai told it many times.
Yes. Let me backtrack
I love Freddie Blassie, too. He was one of my mentors. I tell the story in my book. First time I met him, we were in the Arnold Scolin's territory. It was a little independent show that was going on. So having a good time, Freddie's telling stories, and he said, "Son of a bitch, I got to take a piss." And Nikolai said, "Well, Freddie, bathroom right there." He said, "Yeah, I know, but I'll be mobbed." I said, "No, you won't, Fred." I showed my badge. I said, "I'll escort you." He starts laughing. He said, "What the fuck are you going to do? You son of a..." I said, "You follow me. Come on, Fred." So we go down there. I said, "Everybody out of the bathroom." I pull out my badge. "Mr. Freddie Blassie needs to use the facilities. Get the fuck out of the bathroom now. This is an order from the police department." He's laughing his ass off. He's standing there pissing. He says, "I thank you because I'll be standing here with my cock in my hand and some son of a bitch want to come up and shake hands with me while I'm trying to take a piss." I said, "That's all right, Fred. I know." That's Freddie.
Oh, yeah, because the stories when I had communication with him from Bruce Pitcher, because he got to know Freddie in the office a little bit. And at that point, Freddie was the, different time, different place, obviously. But Freddie would be the kind old Santa Claus for like Christmas parties and stuff. But on the other flip side of the coin, Freddie would be, the stories I've heard, Freddie was that, that son bitch you said, with my cock in my hand, and that, Freddie wasn't the most PC person in the world.
No. But Vince loved him too.
Oh, he was another one of those guys that were taken in from Dad.
Oh, yes. The King of Men.
Yes.
Now, here's a funny story. My wife, Victoria, when we first got together, she said, "Freddie Blassie, I know that name." I said, "How the hell you know?" From Pencil Neck Geek, out of here on the West Coast, Dr. Demento used to play the record. And, it's like, she said, we would listen to Dr. Demento every week. I think he was on Sunday night, and that would play. And I love the song.
brain that leaks, you got yourself a grit-eating pencil-neck geek. Pencil-neck geek, grit-eating freak, scum-sucking pea-head with a lousy physique. He's a one-man, no-cut, losing streak. Nothing but a pencil-neck geek.
Pencil-neck geek. I'm looking for the guy that's supplying the dimes. That's one of my favorite lines. I was fortunate enough. Oh, my God. Tomorrow, March the 1st, it was called Shekel Slam, Macabania, in Newark, New Jersey, back in 97. Freddie was there. It was Michael Mansky and Jeff Bukantz. They put the show on. Two good friends, wrestling historians, and big guys that know shit in the business through the years. So Freddie did Pencil Neck Geek Live. And I just, I marked out at ringside and watched it. And I just absorbed it and loved it. It was wonderful.
You know what's funny, folks, who are listening to this and all. And for as long as we've known each other, we haven't had in-depth wrestling conversations per se. You've been involved in some panels and stuff I've done. But like we have one-on-one haven't had these like in-depth historical conversations, which shame on me for not bringing anything up because I usually like to pick people's brains.
Shame. Shame.
But when I was doing homework, getting ready for this, to make it unique, when did you first get hooked or bit by the business? But I also heard rumor and innuendo was wrestling almost being a savior for you. So,
well, the savior part was because my father was a bastard and abusive. He was alcoholic and beatings, horrible names, just treat me like dog shit. And I heard the kids in school talking about wrestling. So I said, well, let me see what this thing is. So I watched it, and it was Professor Tanaka destroying this jobber. I mean, it was murder. And I'm like, wow, that's wild. And then when I got to see Chief, that was it. It's like those guys were there every Saturday from 4 to 5, Channel 45 in Baltimore. And I couldn't go to the arenas for a while because downtown Baltimore was like you see the docks in the movies. You know, it was not a place you'd let kids go by themselves. Yeah. A lot of my friends in school did because my circle, I was the only one that had two parents and were together. Everybody else was divorced, so kids could run wild. But my best friend at that time, his father took us to the first show, November 28th of 73, and it was like, oh my God. I mean, I entered better than sex. It was unbelievable. I mean, holy shit. You can't, it's undescribable. It really is. You had to have lived that. Today is nothing like it. It's nice. It's great. It's a wonderful experience. But back then, that's why I called it when it was real, when people believed that it was a battle royal that first night. And here they all come walking down the aisle. And I described it as an army marching into battle. It was Andre's first appearance in Baltimore. So here he is. And it's like, oh my God. I mean, we were just in heaven. That was it. You couldn't. And I'll tell you what, they talk about race relations, cross-referencing rich and poor. Everybody was a family that walked through those turnstiles. All the bullshit was left outside. Nobody wanted to talk about any of that. Some people used it as a catharsis. It was their boss getting their ass beaten or a husband, wife, whatever. I just loved the characters. I was in it to watch them and whatever. Was it a soap opera? Fucking A, it was. You got to have a storyline or it's two men fighting in their fucking underwear. It's stupid any other reason.
Why do I want to watch these guys do what they do?
Yeah. And the blood. I mean, of course, you know,
that's a whole nother.
Well, you know, recently, Evan, as you mentioned, who I've known for 30 years, good friend, like a brother.
Talked to him today, actually.
What's that, buddy?
I said I actually talked to him a little bit tonight, or last night, excuse me.
Well, Evan, he's always right there, and he let me advertise the book because he's really go to Evan Ginsberg's pro wrestling site. What is it called? Evan Ginsberg Wrestling Memories.
Old school memories and such, yeah.
Old school, that's it. And he let me advertise the book, and it got some good comments, but somebody said it was never real, and it's like Evan stepped in and said, some people have quoted, I forgot who he said. They said, gravity is real. My divorces are real. My hip replacement was real. Me walking with a cane is real. And I said, yeah, look at their foreheads. Look at, it shocked me with Dominic DeNucci because I had stayed in touch with Dominic over the years, and he really wanted my wife and I to come over. And he said, I'll take care of everything. You don't have to do nothing. I said, Dominic, we're going to try to make that happen. And then I saw the Hamburg Fieldhouse reunion. I'm like, Dominic's got a walker. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. And it's like, but he would probably still try to take care of us. And it's like, no. But look at that. They gave up the body to entertain, and it's like a lot of people lost marriages, estranged from children. Kids grew up, didn't know who the kids were because they were on the fucking road all the time. That's why Evan Ginsberg's 350 days on the road. Please, people, it's worthwhile. Nobody's getting rich on it, but it's a good, it'll teach you of what it was like for them when they traveled, when they weren't millionaires. They didn't make that kind of money back then. But I'm not going to say they don't suffer today. I think they suffer worse, actually, because some of the things I see, the shows I go to, I'm like, oh my God, you're out here killing each, beating each other's brains out. I said, I could tell you don't work every fucking night because you're not going to go work tomorrow night after what you just did in there. Take it easy.
And,
so it's tough.
Yeah. I'll mention that 365 days is, last I saw, was on Amazon Prime. So if you have streaming, go check it out. And call me what you will, and I don't give a shit here with this. But you just mentioned one of the main arguments I mentioned about the business. And yes, is the show predetermined? Yes. However, what Nikita just said is the one argument I always tend to give as my first one about the business is you can't fake gravity.
No. It had to be controlled or you'd have belts changing every fucking week. But all they said was, Jonathan, you going over tonight, you work with Nikita, you figure it out. And that was the end. Or if they said we want color, that was it. That's all the information you got. Go do it.
Yeah.
There was no script that people say, oh, well, they rehearsed. It's like, there's no fucking time to rehearse what? You're on the road. You get to the arena. And plus, you got to work out in between and hopefully sleep and eat.
Yeah.
And then kaboom, you work, do the show, and you're on the road again. There is no time for... Now, today, I don't know. Today is a little bit different. I was back in the locker rooms a couple of times. Yeah, I saw different things. Sure. They have a whole, like on a submarine, they're at the plot table, everything they figure out. Even, I guess, the promos are. But back then, and the reason why wrestling isn't as popular or believable, you can't get any fucking heat today. What are you going to say? They'll burn your station down. You can't do what they used to do in the 70s, even the 80s, like Piper's Pit. God bless him. Piper was the genius, but the shit he used to come up with, he'd have lawyers suing him. It's like, but it brought people into the building to watch the guy that said it.
Sold the tickets.
Yes, it's like, but today everybody's a flower. And, oh my God, you wilted me. Oh my God, I can't stand it. Oh,
but. Speaking of the reality side of things, and it was funny, the one story I heard you tell, and I could totally see it, because I was fortunate enough to talk to Bruno the last, say, 3 to 4 years of his life from when he, how long did he last, and I'm not trying to say that in a bad way, after the Hall of Fame? Maybe 5 years, 6 years?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, so it was a little longer because I got connected with Bruno the year of the Hall of Fame and stayed in touch occasionally. We'll call, hey, how you doing? Just to check in on him, because most of the time people would be, what can I get from him, even to the end. But it would be, hey, Bruno, I just went to call and say, how you doing, and how's the wife, how's the kid, normal conversations. But you told a story of, one of the conversations I was listening to earlier, of you got an opportunity to work with Bruno. Mind you, Bruno was working as a referee, but you can still say, hey, I was associated with Bruno for a show.
Two times.
Yeah.
Yes,
and the story I heard anyway was when he was working as a ref, you did the gimmick, you come in arguing for, was it Nikolai or what? You came in and he ends up clobbering you.
Yes. July 18th, 1998. It was a baseball stadium in New Jersey. And I forget the name of the team that they had then.
Was it the Surf?
It could have been.
It's either the Surf or the Bears.
It was Augusta, New Jersey, because Nikolai kept saying, you sure we're not going to fucking Georgia? I said, no, Nikolai, it's New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's Augusta, New Jersey. So, but I learned how to work, too, a little bit more from Bruno, because I jumped up. He said, no, not yet. Go back down. I said, okay. So, we're doing the bullshit. And then at the end, boom, he gives me the shot, open hand, and I felt it for 2 weeks. And I was like, I can only imagine what this man was like in his prime. If he wanted to put your nose into your brain, he could have done it. And Johnny Valiant, God rest his soul, used to say he was like a gorilla. He had the strength of a fucking gorilla. It's like, this guy is unbelievable. And he's got weightlifting records. Ken Patera, the same. Another subhuman that was like, how the fuck do you put 500 pounds over your head? I still don't believe it. I know it's true, but
it's a hell of a guy.
Yeah, now he's in a wheelchair too from that. The spine, the body can only take so much pressure over the years.
I wish I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with him in this form, but
he's great.
I had an opportunity. But yeah, Ken? Oh yeah, I talked to Ken. He was great. But the guy I was going to mention as far as just scary strength and stuff, I had a brief encounter with him in Phoenix. I was out there for Mania 26 when Shawn Michaels retired.
Mm.
But the guy I'm thinking of was Harley Race. I happened to be coming out of I think it was a Subway or something like that. I was getting food. But, me being the old school guy, holy shit, that's Harley Race, because obviously he kept a relationship until the day he died with the WWE.
Yes.
Mr. Race, how you doing? The whole bit. He was going on an appearance or, something. We were crossing paths. He was leaving a hotel. He reached out, shook my hand. And the best way to describe it, at least for me, was my great-grandfather was a butcher in post-World War II. And Harley reminded me of that old farmer's handshake. You could see it even as an older man, his forearms, and he just had that natural grip strength. Yeah, but it was, hey, Mr. Race, how you doing? Just a brief encounter. Shook my hand. I'm like, good Lord. You could just feel it in his, handshake. Yes. I don't think he was a guy that was into weightlifting and all that kind of jazz, but you could just feel that, good Lord, I wouldn't want to be hit by him.
And he was a legitimate badass too.
Yeah. The stories on Harley.
He wasn't a bully, but if you wanted to go, he would go.
Yeah. And this, Christ, there I go again. But
Well, it's
Flair
like Bob
and all these other guys would tell the stories that they'd send Harley in.
Yeah. Now, see, Bob Backlund, he was, he didn't ever look big till you saw him in person. And then it's like, ooh, now you can see where he gets his strength from. But he was the kind of guy, because Harley Race helped put him over in the book. Mm-hmm. You have to believe it, I guess, if it's actually what Harley Race said. I do, because I can't imagine Bob Backlund with his integrity that would lie and put it in print. No. But when everybody comes up with this, well, Backlund wasn't over. Backlund and Harley Race said, when I wrestled him in Madison Square Garden, September the 22nd of 1980, he was over. There's no
I call
question.
Bullshit on that. Yeah, people that say that.
Plus, he turned the Missouri title over to him. And it's like, Harley Race ain't going to give any chump his belt. You're going to have to prove yourself. He believed in Backlund. And it's like, this kid's got it. And it was true. But here's a story with him, too, where the guy comes up. Johnny Valiant told me. It was up in Cape Cod. Because Vince owned Cape Cod Coliseum. Mm-hmm. So Johnny said he gets there and he hears this screaming in one of the dressing rooms. And he's like, what the hell's going on? He puts his bag down. And Vince is standing in the doorway with a big smirk in his arm. And he said, Vince, what's happened? He said, this biker over there wanted to put one of these pussy wrestlers down. He said, because they're phony. So I put him in there with Backlund. And it's like, he had him in a front face lock. And it's like, that guy's begging for his mom so he could get loose. And it's like, hey, look, they could take the punishment that you see them dish out. It would be like a boxer, though. You need some time off, or like a football player where you need a week in between, but they could do it. I've seen, they're like somebody, Cal Rudman from Philadelphia described them as Klingons from Star Trek. It's like they're subhuman. It's just, how can you take that kind of, because he brought a guy that was a doctor for rheumatology and arthritis specialist, and they watched a cage match between Backlund and Slaughter. And it was March the 14th of 1981 in Slaughter's prime. He was, or 21st, he was really going crazy. And this guy, this Dr. Sidney Solomon's watching, he's like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. He said, but they broke the support when he rammed Slaughter's head. It's like, how is he walking? How do they do this? Do they have body doubles? It's like, because they're like, he'll be wrestling in 2 days, and it's like, he said, I don't know how. It defies logic. It defies everything I've been trained as a medical doctor. I can't believe what I'm witnessing. And it's like, yeah, crazy shit, Daddy, but that's wrestlers.
It is what it is. Couple more questions, because I know the time would fly, but
yes,
the first thing, it always does when we shoot the shit and keep it relaxed. We mentioned it earlier about the blood. And obviously, in today's era, I can, in some ways, understand with sponsors, health reasons, all that stuff. But I also like to argue with what is done within the business, that if done right, blood can really change things. Like I say with music within a movie, you can make things from good to great to holy shit. Like blood can do the same thing if done right.
Yeah.
What is that makes that happen?
Well, I've described it as, I guess we were a bunch of demented sociopaths or sadomasochists, because it's like, if we saw blood, if it was the wrong guy, you could be trying to get out of the building alive and run, park blocks away so your car doesn't get destroyed. But when it was the other shoe, we were cheering and loving it to see the bad guy, like Uncle Ivan, when Backlund or Bruno would bloody him, and somebody that wasn't afraid to bleed and their forehead showed it. And the smart thing was, what I've learned from acting, is lighting. Turn down the house lights, put on the ring lights. Wow, did it look magnificent. It was just crazy. So the first time I ever saw it was with the Captain Lou Albano.
Was this the Rick Martel story with the vodka and just blatantly?
No. This was August the 16th of 1975. They just put Bruno and Albano in the main event. Bruno said, I'm tired of him. I want a match with Albano. Albano's, I'll frickle him. I got a surprise or add Bruno. So, okay, you could give everybody else the night off. You would have filled the building because it's like, Albano's going to get it tonight. And he did. And my God, my friend and I, we went to the ring, and it was just blood all over the mat, down the stairs, down the aisle. It's like, this is real blood, Daddy-O. There is no way. There's nothing that's going to hold that much in a capsule or whatever bullshit you dream up. That man is bleeding. And it's like, but look at that. Lou, he loved the business. He understood. He wasn't much as a wrestler. He was great as a manager. And people come to see him get murdered. Boom, he's sliced and diced. And it's like, another one, Johnny said, it's like, Albano would come up. He said, look, you think I ain't tough? And he'd splash aftershave in his open wounds. It's like, Lou, get the hell out of here. Go away already. My God, it's like, we do it, but it's still a little bit sickening too. It's like, enough is enough. Jeez. But Lou was goofy. I loved him. I got to know him through the years and learned a lot from Lou Albano. And he was a very religious guy. And
afraid of germs.
He would say a lot of things, but he'd never take the Lord's name in vain. I'll say that much. So, yeah, Lou lived a lot. He was a great person. And, he told the truth, though. He said that Super Mario thing where he played Luigi or whatever it was.
Mario.
Introducing the cartoon. He said, I made more money with that than I made all the years of wrestling. Good for him. God bless him. He deserved it. Right place at the right time, but see, people recognized him because of wrestling, and they gave him the gig, and he ran with it, and he was perfect.
Absolutely. I actually just introduced my 5-year-old nephew, he's going to be 5 tomorrow, to that show because he likes the cartoon that's on Net Peacock or whatever now. But I said, here, let me show you this because I'm the fun uncle. Let me show you the previous generation when I was your age. Right. But that's a whole another story for another time. But you just mentioned it, and I think it's apropos that we end with this one. You talked about guys parking several blocks away and all that fun stuff. But what was, obviously, I would think you saw some things of when you focused with the book when it was real and all that fun stuff. Would fans having the chutzpah or the balls to try to cross that barrier with guys?
Well, we would throw stuff without a doubt with the cars, but
there's a difference there. Guys would, whether they had a couple beers and I think I could take him. I can do, you know what I mean? They cross that line.
I saw it many times. The first night that I went, Tanaka won the Battle Royal. He and Fuji and Chief were left, and they got better at Chief. So flipped a coin. Tanaka got it. He just got beaten by Morales. He comes out of the ring, and this guy walks up and hits him. And Tanaka just looked at him, and he gave him a fucking chop, and I swear it was 4 rows. The guy was airborne. And I know Tanaka could have killed him if he wanted. Then I saw one of the riots over the years. It was July 22nd, 1978. Ivan Putski was one of Baltimore's favorite sons. So he's got a match with Arion. Arion's got him in a headlock, and I'm in the front row. And this was no gig. Arion took something and stabbed Putski in the head with it. I guess Putski was goofy and just said, do it yourself. Just do it to me. Well, the blood started pouring. Putski drops over the top rope to the floor. He's counted out. It's riot time. It started with an old man. He comes at Arion with a chair. The guards intercept him. Here comes another one. About 4 or 5 people, but one guy gets through. He hits Arion in the back. Arion turns around and says, motherfucker. Well, the guy turns to run. The poor bastard trips. Well, Arion started putting a stomp to him. It's like he's got blood coming out of his nose, his ears, his mouth. The guards just scooped up Arion and carried him off because it's like, we got to get him out of here. He's going to get killed. They rushed Bobo Brazil and Tony Gurria out. They were in a tag match that night, so that kind of brought things back down a little bit. But
cool the temperature a little bit.
People were crazy enough. It's like, you don't want to fight these guys. You're crazy. You're absolutely out of your mind. They want to fight them.
And you know what? I'll ask this as the final question, Nikita. And obviously, I knew you towards the end of your civilian job, as I like to call it, in working for the police department in Baltimore. Did they ever, your coworkers and stuff, because I'd like to say that, like wrestling, if you're in the fire department or police department or, those type of jobs, did they ever give you a little hazing for, what do you want to be involved at that weekend? The wrestling stuff.
No, because I had to get permission to do it. It was considered a secondary employment. And the first thing my immediate boss, who was a major, rank of major, said, I'll sign this. First he said, are you bullshitting? I said, no, sir, this is legitimate. He's like, well, I'll sign this under one condition. You bring Nikolai in here for us to meet him. I'm like, yes, sir, without a doubt. Now, a lot of people didn't know for a while about that, because most of the time I was going somewhere else. But then we did a show called Manic Monday. It was the local news. Every Monday morning, somebody would sing, it's a Manic Monday. So Nikolai and I did it. And one guy, detective, said he wanted to put it, he taped it, he wanted to show it at roll call. So I'm sitting in the back of the room, and these other detectives are like, what are we watching this shit for? And the guy's like, that's him. And he's pointing to me, and he's like, it is. It's you. He said, how come we didn't know? I said, well, you weren't supposed to know, goof. That was the whole idea. I got the Wolfman. Or Batman. I got two identities here, So, people loved it. I still, on Facebook, people that I knew in the police department, and they're like, they love it. It's like, it's really great.
Yeah. And I'll wrap with this because I find it funny and for several reasons. And I obviously get why there was concern, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but as part of your gig with the police force, you would work over and you're a baseball guy too. Yes. So you would be over at Oriole Park from time to time working.
Yes.
And I was coming down, so I had to text Nikita, said, hey, I'm coming down, And at the time I worked for a independent baseball team. Hey, mind bringing some gimmicks and whatever? And yeah, no problem, because I was working as a mascot and whatever. Yeah, I'll bring some stuff down. And this is the funny part, or not funny part, is this was after 9/11. So I could see where their concern was. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Nikita says, hey, I'm going to be out in the bullpen area, gives me the 411. So I go out there, text him, hey, I'm here. He pokes his head out, hey, here's your gimmicks. And I throw the gimmicks for anyone who don't know Oriole Park, the bullpen is out in the outfield and such. So I dropped a bag of gimmicks and no big deal. Well, Oriole Park security was like, somebody saw me and was like, holy shit, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, they start losing their minds, come charging me and shit. I go, what'd you do? What'd you just throw? Talk to him. Because you were, a detective at the time, right? Towards your later career?
I was in working uniform as a sergeant.
Yeah.
Yes, because I was detective sergeant. He had to work uniform.
I said, talk to that guy. I put down in the key. Talk to him. It's okay. It was stuff from it. I'm like, God. It was just one of those you had to be there kind of thing. But I find it funny. I still tell that story.
Now, getting to work the bullpen in the dugout, I met a lot of my childhood idols that became coaches, like Mel Stottlemyre. He gave me a ball one night when the Yankees were in town. I'm like, oh my God. I became friends with Elrod Hendricks, his former catcher. What a beautiful man. He was just great. He was a prince, I tell you. He couldn't do enough. We were freezing together one Good Friday because it was early April, and in Baltimore it can be some chilly nights. And it was a Friday night game, and I'm out there freezing to death with Elrod Hendricks. He gave me a pair of hand warmers in the pack. I never opened them. I'll risk frostbite. I still have them hanging on my wall. It's like there's no way I'm going to open these.
Yeah, because people realize and have heard me in different episodes mention the love I have for the Orioles. And Nikita can testify that I've been an Oriole guy forever. But I want to show you this as we call it a close.
Yes.
Can you see that image on the wall there?
Yeah, I see the Camden Yard. Sure do.
Yep. Yeah,
I do.
In the office here, I got to.
But I got a brick from Memorial Stadium. I love that place.
I'm
I spent so many days and nights there watching Earl Weaver perform, and it was like, my God.
There was an Earl Weaver story I just shared.
For $1.50, you could go and sit in the bleachers every night, and you could see plenty. It was great. We were happy. That was how we spent our summer.
Earl Weaver, and this, seriously, I'm going to hit the button here, but I just shared a post on Facebook. It was great. It was an Earl Weaver quote, and he goes, he was arguing with the ref, surprise, or the umpire, and he goes, I'm going to look it up in the rule book.
Yes.
The umpire goes, here, well, I'll give you my rule book. Earl goes back to him and says, son, I can't read Braille.
Yes. Oh, my God.
That was Earl.
Go look it up on YouTube. He gets into it with Bill Howler. It's Mike somehow. And, I mean, it is colorful. Woo! It's classic.
Not Earl. Colorful? Stop.
Oh, but he was no bullshit. He was a little guy. But, man, I'll tell you, he didn't take shit for 2 seconds. He was good.
No, not at all.
We loved him.
Where can people find the book and follow you if they wish to?
Facebook is the only place to get me, but the book, crowbarpress.com is the hard copy, and amazon.com for the Kindle version. The book is $20, the Kindle's $10. If you go to McDonald's, you'll probably walk out spending more, guys. It's worth it. It's wrestling history. I've been told by people that have got it, that get wrestling in those days, said I can't put it down. And thank me for the memories, because it's not a history book or not a results book, but it is a history book with a narrative to it that covers. I don't think I left out an angle, like talking about Lou Albano putting the X over the O because he didn't want to be Italian anymore. He said, I'm Lou Albano. I'm fed up with that Sammartino. It's like little things like that meant so much to us. So I don't think I left anything out.
Nice. Nikita, thank you so much.
My pleasure, my brother. Jonathan, you're a good man. Keep doing it. We'll do more.
And I will be on the West Coast in April. I'm hoping I can make it up your way to see you this time.
Please do. I'll give you a great tour. You'll love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Volkov requests that you all rise and respect his singing of the Soviet national anthem.
Can you get us?
Russia, number one. Iran, number one. USA,
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies. Enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions or during our particular watch-alongs. Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs? out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media and order yours today.
Howdy, folks. Double J, Jeff Jarrett. That's right. That's Jeff, J-A-R-R-E-T-T. That's Double J, Jeff Jarrett. The world's greatest singer, world's greatest entertainer, and the world's greatest wrestler, and now, world's greatest podcaster. And you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.